Akada, Children's Book Festival.
How's everyone doing? Hope we're having a fantastic time so far. Thank you. So the title of my talk today is Tips on Having Difficult Conversations with Your Children. So in getting ready for the talk, it's so amazing how life is. I think that these things tend to happen for me when I actually need to learn it as well. So I'm a mom. I have 3 wonderful children. My oldest is 9. And then I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So, you know, my son is 9, my daughter is 8, and I'm having to answer some questions now, you know? So it's been a tricky time. So this talk and this opportunity to give this talk really means a lot to me because I was able to learn as well. So hopefully this will be insightful for the people who are listening. So as adults, we've all been on the receiving end of a difficult conversation. We've all had to deal with bad news at some point. And I think because we know how it feels to receive bad news, it makes it much harder to have conversations with children. Because we want to protect them, we don't want bad things to happen to them. It's, you know, we know how it feels. We don't want them to be sad or upset. So it can be quite difficult. But life is life. And life is difficult. So this is something that we're going to have to face head on anyway. So at some point as parents, we might need to have a conversation where we might have to break some bad news, like the death of a loved one. We might have to ask difficult questions about things we're worried about, like new behaviors, new friends, topics that we might find uncomfortable, like sex, sexuality, drugs. All of us are living in 2022. We know that these conversations are coming up and coming up even earlier and earlier. Where before you would have the talk about the birds and the bees with a 15, 16-year-old. Now, from age 7, you might need to start having a conversation about sex with children. It's just where we have found ourselves. There's no point in hiding or denying what's happening. This is what's happening. We need to get on top of it. So might have to have discussions on these topics, asking our children if they're worried or scared about something, and so much more. Whatever the subject may be, and however old the child you're talking to is, there are lots of ways to make it easier for you and for the child. And of course, when we're having conversations, we need to put it in a way that is age appropriate and supportive. You can't have the same kind of conversation about sex, for example, that you have with a 15-year-old and have a similar conversation with a 7-year-old. So we also have to bear age in mind when we're having conversations. However, you know your child best. So trust your judgment regarding what best will work for yourself and for your family. Okay, so why is it good to talk? It's important that every child has someone that they trust, that they can look to and talk to. We all want our children to grow up in safe environments where they feel like they can be open and honest, and that way it helps them become happy and confident adults. So it's very important to foster communication and foster it as early as you can. I'm so glad that I'm a mother in this era where communication is encouraged. When I was younger, it was a little bit difficult to have conversations with my parents about certain things, you know. So it makes me so excited that we're having conversations around conversations with children. So communication, of course, plays a very important role in shaping your child's personality and your relationship with them. We need to understand that conversation is different from talking to your child. Did anyone know this? Conversation is different from talking with your child. And when I first read that, it took me a minute to understand that, because talking to your child or talking with your child, you know, it's time for school, wake up, time to eat. You haven't brushed your teeth, didn't brush your teeth, homework, this, that. So there's a lot of talking, but how many real conversations are we having with our children? So when I was reading this, I was like, wow, that's also a check for me. Am I really having conversations? How many am I having? Because I feel like, I'm a very expressive person. I talk a lot, so my house is very noisy. And my children too are like chatterboxes, so there's always a lot of noise. But how much of that noise is true conversation? You know, that's something for all of us to think about. So, of course, talking is instructing them on the many things throughout the day that we need to. As their moms, we're always giving directions. Whereas conversations are meaningful talks where your child and you can take away good feelings which will last a long time. Meaningful conversations, of course, strengthen the family bond, helps us understand each other better. Of course, it's a good way of transmitting knowledge. A great amount of knowledge is passed through real conversation, not just from you to the child, but even from the child to you. It develops empathy within children. It polishes the art of listening for children, helps them develop good communication, vocabulary, and skills. So that's why it's important. So it's important to prepare for these difficult conversations. It's not something that you should just kind of launch into. Whatever it is you want to discuss, it's important to think about the where and how to talk to the child so that the child will listen. Number one, there's no real way of telling how long the conversation is going to be. Like, you might think, oh, I'm just going to have a 5-minute chat with a child. I'm sure all of us know that the chat can just take a different turn and you'll be there for, an hour. And you can't interrupt because you need to, see this conversation through to the end. So there's no telling how long it will last. So the first thing to consider is when and where you're going to start the conversation. For example, the child has come back from school, they've done lesson, then they've done homework, then they've had dinner, they've had their shower. Then just as they're about to go to bed, you're like, okay, so time for us to have a talk. I want us to have a talk. The child is tired, so you might get like a truncated version of the event, and the child might just be too tired to be as emotionally invested in the conversation as you would hope. So it's important to pick the time with the child. And then if you're talking to only one child about something, it's important to consider how private the time and place are. So it might not work. And so yesterday I had to have a chat with my son about a party. We had agreed that he would go to a party. It was his friend's birthday and he was very excited about it. And so my plan was, when I'm going to come here, because the party is also in Lekki, so I'll drop him at the party, then I'll come here, and then I'll go and pop in. And in the evening yesterday, he came and told me, oh, I've been thinking about it. I don't think I want to go for the party anymore. And that really surprised me because this is something he had been looking forward to. This is like his good friend. So I was a bit confused. But then when he came to tell me this, I chose to engage him in the conversation, but my other kids were there. And so, my youngest was like, oh, mommy, throwing things around. My daughter was talking about something else, and the whole thing was just so chaotic. And he just gave me some excuse about, being tired, and he thinks he wants to do his homework. I'm like, you want to do your homework on Saturday? Since when? But it just wasn't the right time, and because there was just so much going on, and then it was late. And because I had prepared this talk, I knew that I had to pick a time. So I will have that conversation with him later today. Of course, I didn't force him. I was like, if you don't want to go to it, that's perfectly fine. Let's talk a bit. Would you like to talk some more about it tomorrow? And he said, yes, so we'll have the talk today. But again, it's just picking the time. I could have also said, what do you mean? No, I've already planned my Saturday. I'm already going to be in Lekki. I don't want you to be at home doing nothing. You go for the party after. We can talk about it. I don't want. But I was trying to hear him. And even if I didn't understand, I heard it, I took it on board. And we will table it at a later date. Amen? Amen. So, yes. So it's best to have it at a time where brothers and sisters are not around to interrupt. That was not a good time for the conversation. Today will most likely be a bit better. It could be good to have it in a relaxed and neutral place. Like maybe if you're going on a walk or you're in a car driving. I find drives to be a very good time to engage my children. That's one of the main reasons why I really, really enjoy the school run. And it's very difficult. I hate waking up early in the morning, and I don't have to. I work for myself, but I do it because I really get good quality time with my kids at that time. Of course, most importantly, make sure to stay away from all types of gadgets when having a heart-to-heart conversation. I mean, your child is trying to talk to you about something and you're like, yep. No, I'm listening, you know. Oh, he did what? Who? Bolaji? No, I said Folake. Sorry. Folake, you know, like, it's not helpful, and it makes the child feel like what they're saying is not deserving of your full attention. Okay, yes, and then of course you can also ask other friends that are parents that you know have managed to create the right situation to talk about these things with their kids, and see if it will work for you. I'm big on communicating with other parents in the community. I think it's very important because we were not actually meant to raise children in isolation. There's a reason why we have that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So it's important to ask, you know, so ask other people. Okay, yeah, so ask other people. Okay, so how to start? So I'm running out of time. So how to start? It's never easy to start a serious conversation with a child. It's never easy to start a serious conversation with anybody. I'm very non-confrontational. For me to have a chat with you, I really have to gear up and psych myself up. So it's even more difficult with a child. It's important to think about what you want from your chat with your child and consider how to approach the topic. Of course, too forceful and opening might worry them. I want to talk to you about sex. Do you like boys? No. You know, like, no, I don't. Like, you don't want to, you know, the child will just completely shut down. No, I do like boys. No, I don't like boys. And they will just kind of clam up and feel uncomfortable. So it can be a good idea to try and make the conversation relevant to them. So if you know, like, a TV show or a movie or a book that has like similar themes or addresses that topic, like maybe like a character that experienced bullying or something, you can use that as a conversation starter. So, you know, oh, you know, what did you think about what happened to this person in that book? And children find it easier if it's not them. They are very expressive. If they are telling you about their friends, they will when he did because it's easier to kind of dissociate, you know. So if it's a TV character and it's bullying, what they did to him was so wrong. This made me feel so bad. So finding a way to relate something like that is very helpful. And of course, now there are lots of storybooks that are themed to certain things. Okay. What is going on? Oh my gosh. Okay, so there are lots of storybooks that have that are written with like themes. There are books on like, oh, bullying or you know, eating disorders, nutrition, things like that. And they're very helpful. Thank God we're in a book festival, so we can all go and look around after. And when you and your child read that book a couple of times, get comfortable with the subject, you can then ask questions like, oh, you know, so this person, what do you think about what this person did? That's an easy way to start the conversation. Okay, but you know that she should have probably done this, right? Or they should have done that, and then you can start a conversation from there. You can also start out by asking them what they think about the topic. If it's something they've discussed in class, you can ask them what they thought about the lesson or what their classmates thought. Like I said, it's always easier when it's someone else and it's not them. And you can also say, and I love this one, you can also say that a friend of yours needs some advice about a particular issue, and to ask them, you want to ask them if they have any ideas. One, it's a fantastic way of making them feel like their opinions are valued. Like, I'm coming to ask you for advice. Like, what do you think about this thing? I'm sure I speak for most moms when we know our children love to give advice. Like, they want to feel like they're in charge. So even giving them that opportunity is amazing. So how to keep the conversation going? It might take some time for your child to understand what you're fully saying, and that's okay. However you choose to start your conversation, try to keep your expectations realistic. This issue is not going to be solved in one conversation. It's not going to be solved in one day. It might not go as well as you're hoping, but give it time. Your child might also not be ready to talk straight away. You may have done all the things, chosen the right time, read the books, watched the movie, set the stage, and they're not ready to talk at that time, and that's also okay. you can just try and restart the conversation maybe a little bit later. And then it's also good to think about having a few bite-sized conversations over a period of time. You cannot exhaust the issue of bullying in one evening with a child. You can't exhaust the conversation of peer pressure in one day, but you can just kind of break it up and have small conversations each time with the child, so it's not like you're giving a lecture. And then, of course, listening is important too. It's important to show that you're listening to the child and that you value what they are telling you. So a good way is asking questions that don't have yes or no answers. This gives your child, of course, a chance to tell you what they really think. So, for example, are you being bullied in school? No. You know, or do you sometimes feel, how does it make you feel when people are nice to you in class? You know, then it's like, well, this is how it makes me feel. It's happened to me XYZ times, and then you can start from there. So are you being bullied? No. Do you like boys? No. Yes. I keep going back to that because that was me. Yes, so start by asking questions that don't have yes or no answers. This gives your child the chance to tell you what they think. Then give them as long as they need to answer without interrupting. They may be nervous or still trying to work out what they really think. So I'm sure all of us would have noticed in our interactions with small children, they're talking, but they're actually trying to work out what they aren't able to fully form the thought and then deliver it to you. They actually have to kind of keep talking before they arrive at what they're trying to say. And we have to be gracious enough to give them that time. As difficult as it may be, because sometimes it's very difficult, you just be waiting for this child to arrive. Waiting for this child to arrive. You know, your phone is ringing, you're trying not to look at the phone because you're waiting for the child to arrive. So it's difficult, but we need to give them the time. Yes, so they may be nervous and still working out what they really think, and that could take some time. And then, of course, let your children ask you questions too. Be honest with them about how you feel about certain subjects, and let them know about things that have happened to you in the past. My 8-year-old asked me 3 weeks ago, was like, oh, so was daddy your only boyfriend? So my daughter asked me. I was now just thinking like through so many things. I'm like, do I lie? No, because if I now, I was like, no, let me lie. I was like, let me lie. But I was like, no, but I don't want to lie. I was like, no, he was not. But I wish he was. I wish he was, you know? She was like, wow, she was scandalized, like, you actually had another. But I said, yes. You know, I did. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with dating. You know, you might have to date a few people before you meet your husband, and that's okay, you know. But of course, I'm like, God, please, I hope this doesn't veer into, you know, those other kind of questions. But it's important to be honest. It's like, yeah, you know, I did, you know, I had a boyfriend, or 4, you know, before I met your dad. Well, I didn't say 4, but you know what I mean. So let them ask you questions and be honest. I think it's also good for your kids to know that you aren't perfect, and, you know, they don't then feel this unnecessary pressure. A real turning point for me, so odd, a real turning point for me in my relationship with my mother was when I realized that she had dated men before my father. I couldn't believe it. I was 15, I was going through my first heartbreak. It was such a devastating, you know, at 15 is devastating. It's like you are going to die. Like my life is over, you know, and I was just in my room, you know, like I was struggling, I wasn't eating, and she just came to my room and was like, what's wrong with you? And I didn't know how to tell her, you know, and I told her, oh, you know, this boy, he broke up with me, he said he doesn't want to be my boyfriend anymore, he doesn't love me, no one will ever love me. And, you know, she was like, First of all, that's a lie, because guess what? You know, I mean, I have a boyfriend who broke up with, I only let one man break up with me though. And since that time, no man has ever broken up with me. But I couldn't believe that we're even having that kind of conversation, and it just changed so much for me. And so for me, it's very important that I'm honest and open with my kids, particularly my daughters, because these conversations are so important. And I'm so glad that we're kind of moving away from secrecy and silence around relationships, especially with daughters. You know, I think it's important that they know, because it's very much a reality that they're going to be facing dealing with men and boyfriends and things like that. Okay, so let them know that they can trust you to keep their confidence, and because you want them to always feel like they can talk to you. So again, that's so important. If they say you cannot say this to this person, it's imperative that you do not break that trust, because once you have trust, like a mirror, once it's broken, especially with children. They will always bear it in mind that I cannot trust you. So sometimes your child might actually come up to you to talk about a concern. They might want to talk about being bullied. Like now, throughout this session, we've been talking about you going to talk to your child. Now we're talking about your child actually coming up to you to say, this is something that is happening to me. First thing first, okay, so bullying is even one thing. It can even be them who are the bullies, or I got myself into a situation, you know, I sent a boy an inappropriate picture of myself. They've come to tell you something. The first thing you need to bear in mind before you fall to the ground and start shouting that your village people are attacking you, the first thing you need to bear in mind is that it's taken them a lot of courage to come and talk to you and tell you this thing. So you want to make them feel as comfortable as possible to continue the conversation. Okay, all right, no problem. How did this happen? You know, what happened? You need to make them comfortable, because this is such an important time in their life, and it's going to be a defining moment in your relationship with them, how you react to something that they haven't done quite right or something that is not ideal. So if it's not the right time or place, agree when and where you're going to talk, and keep to it. One thing you don't want to do is put off conversations with your children, like, okay, we'll talk about it later. And this happens to all of us, and then they come to talk to you about it, but you're tired, you've been at work all day, you've been fighting your boss, you've been fighting your husband. They'll now come and tell you, oh, this time I'll talk to you about my friend she sent me a letter that she doesn't want to be my friend again. Please, don't, this is not the time. What's that? I'm telling you that I have bigger issues. I'm fighting for my life. You're telling me your friend wrote you a letter that she doesn't want to be your friend. Please come and clear from here. So if you set a time, just make sure you stick to it. Of course, begin by reassuring your child that they can tell you anything they need, and you do not blame them in any way. Listen carefully to what they have to say. And if you don't understand, be honest and ask them to explain. See, we're raising children that are going to be Gen Z, Gen A, I don't even know, you know. So sometimes, like, these Gen Z kids be talking, I don't understand what they're talking about. I can't even, I'll just be like, okay, so sorry, again, you said that this, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. No, it's important that you know. Don't be afraid of looking silly or stupid. This is not about that. It's about getting all of the information. And if that means you have to keep asking and asking, of course, in a respectful and gentle manner, it's important you get that information. Above all, listen to everything they want to say before you start offering advice or giving opinions. Hear them out first. And then one of the most important things, as they have now told you this thing, okay, I'm being bullied, okay, you know, I sent an inappropriate picture, I don't know. I mean, these are the issues. Listen, these are the issues we're going to be facing. No, there's no point in even pretending. We all know what's on ground. So, okay, this has now happened. You then need to ask them, what would you like me to do about it? There's some things that you may not be able to do anything at all. And the only thing you can do is reassure or support them. But if there's something that you can do and you plan on doing something, it's important that you let the child know. So my friend isn't talking to me. she wrote me a letter and said that she doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And maybe I now plan on talking to the mother about it, of the child, to be like, what happened? Is everything okay? Why they're best friends? Why would they suddenly fall out? Why would she send her that kind of letter? That makes sense to have the conversation with the mother. But ask the child, what would you like me to do? If the child has said, please, I'm just telling you, I don't want anything done, don't talk to the mom, and you then go behind that child to have the conversation. And of course, it's from a well-meaning place. It's because you're trying to help them. But if they've told you in confidence and you have now gone and broken that trust in order to help them, you've completely negated all the good that you're trying to do. So it's important that your child knows, okay, so I'm thinking that I want to call Mrs. A. Is that okay? Yes, okay. So in conclusion, unfortunately, things happen that turn young lives upside down. Talking with your children about illness or death or life-changing topics can be very emotional and very distressing for you and for the child. But it can also be helpful. Another thing that'll be helpful is to kind of think of the sort of questions your child is likely to ask you. If we're talking about death, for example, and you're going to initiate the conversation, it would be good to maybe do a little bit of research on some questions that the child can possibly ask. Okay, so where do you go when you die? At least you should have an answer for that. Or, am I going to see them again? It's good to kind of have answers so that you're also not like flummoxed when these questions come up. Having difficult conversations is hard in conclusion, but if you handle it well, it might be very, very tough, but it's a wonderful opportunity to bring you and your child closer together and help you better understand each other. And that brings us to the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Can I say something? I don't know whether it's a question that I have to ask. Yes. But I was just thinking as you were speaking that there's several seminars, parenting workshops. I've heard all that you said over and over again, but it's so difficult sometimes to do these things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm even doing what I shouldn't be doing, and my spirit is telling me, "Oh, take it easy now." But sometimes we get overwhelmed. So my question really will be, where you have messed up, you've not done all these things. For every example you gave, I was in the picture. As simple as driving to school. Maybe because I'm always, okay, let me start by saying I'm widowed. So the children were 2, 4, and 6 years old.
Wow.
And so we are going to school, I'm pressed for time, I'm doing everything. We're coming today. That conversation we should have been having. I said, please, we need to make up for this weekend you're going to have for the reading. They were gisting among themselves. I don't want to hear anyone, I was just telling myself that when you have been all here and okay, we want to turn a new leaf. Is this same thing we will do at it's tough.
It's very tough for.
Even conversations, like somebody does not want to be my friend, my default answer is, anyone that doesn't want to be your friend, that's the person's loss.
Exactly.
I'm like, if nobody wants to be your friend, well, they are not wanting, they go and look for somebody
else.
So
Exactly.
As you're talking, I'm telling myself, okay, so maybe I should just be quiet. Then you want all this talk that you say good time, then never a good time.
Yeah.
So to speak. They were sitting in some cases, they are like, we are traveling all the way to the house tomorrow, I just need some quiet. But that's how I'm feeling at that time. So is it that I'm overwhelmed? And what do I do? They've done therapy, I've done therapy, but the real thing is all these things now, I'm not doing this. How do I move from?
So I think that's a separate conversation, a separate talk altogether, because what you're talking about is dealing and managing overwhelm. And I think that, of course, overwhelm is something that most mothers are facing, particularly motherhood is already overwhelming. Motherhood in Nigeria, where you are fighting for your life every day, is just such a multi-layered subject. But from what I'm hearing, the issue is just within yourself and trying to get to a place where you are not feeling mentally overwhelmed. Like you said, there's never a right time. There's never a right time for anything, but it's something that you have to be intentional in creating and curating. But I know you know that. Yeah. So just to try. But the thing is, you can't get, like I said, even if you pick one thing out of everything that we have discussed here today and try and implement one thing, I think maybe don't try and work on too many things at once. If the only thing you're going to take, the only thing you take away from this is, okay, you know what, in school run, maybe I won't even do the one coming back, just the one in the morning. I will try and have a conversation with them in that one. Not that one coming back, oh please, I need quiet. By that time, I've gone to work, I've been fighting all day. I don't want to talk to anybody. But at least that morning one, I will try. I think if you just give yourself very small, achievable goals, it will be helpful. Don't try and do too many. Just take one. Just take one thing and just work on one thing. And even if you do the one thing for 6 months, you know, you would have grown in 6 months, and then you can try and take on one more thing. It's just giving yourself small steps. I mean, I can see that you want to do the best for your children, and that's a commendable and beautiful thing, but you can only do it slowly. Just pick one thing and start with that. You can do one thing. You're more than capable of doing one action point. Just start from there. That's what I think. I also think that one of the great things that's happening in terms of this generational shift is we're breaking the culture of silence. And I like that moms now are actually looking to communicate. I know lots of people who would have found it very difficult to have those kind of conversations with their parents, like this is something that happened to me. But that's because the communication was not there. And what I would say is, if you want your child to be able to come to you with like the bigger things, the child needs to be able to come with you with the smaller things first. So that day-to-day communication in every aspect, what happened in school today, you know, what did you eat? Like it's in the small things. A big conversation like that is not going to happen if those smaller conversations haven't been there. So I think that it's important that you are intentional with that. I also think it's very important from a very early age, of course, teaching children about private, right? What is private, what is not private, and just continuing to reinforce. I used to do it every day when I was bathing my kids, you know. So here, can anyone touch you here? Can touch you here? Touch you here? No, remember, no one can touch you here. No one can touch you there. And it's that in that constant reinforcement. I'm like, oh, you know, and you know, if anyone does that, make sure you let me know. Okay, you can always come and tell me. It is when you have built up those blocks, one, that when something like that happens, because it has been reinforced to them so much, they know it's wrong. I never got, when I was younger, I didn't know anything about privates, who should touch me, who shouldn't touch. Like I didn't know. I was never told. You know, the only thing I was told was, you know, sit like a lady. Why are you sitting your legs like this? Sit like a lady. But I didn't know I didn't know. So I never got an education in that way. So I think it's important to first educate the children so they know. So that when something even is like, but I know because my mom has told me every day, and we know the key for learning for children is reinforcement. It's not just saying it the one time, it's every day. And you have also encouraged them every day. You know you can talk to me, you know you should tell me, I think that's what helps. And then just continue. Communication is a two-way thing. You cannot expect your children to communicate with you if you're not communicating with them. Even if they don't have anything to say, ask them how their day went. It was fine. Okay, let me tell you about my day. This is what I did today. And then I'll go through this whole thing. And then by the time I'm talking about my day, they will now remember, oh, but this also happened to me today. So I think that's the answer. I think communication in the small things leads to being open enough and confident enough to have like the bigger, more uncomfortable conversations. Hope that was helpful.
Okay. To add that all these statistics that they give us, they usually tell us that 0 to 7 is the time that we can build all the bonds that we can build in the world. And that by 8 to 10 years, you can just solidify. By the time they are 12, you are just watering whatever seed that you have sown. So if this communication, like you said, has been established, you won't have any issues. And then you tell the children, I tell my children, I'm not dying. And anybody tells them, tell your mom
Exactly. It's true. It's true. It's true. I love that.
You know, so I say it all the time so that when anybody says some language,
yeah, they know that she has told me that she's not going to. Exactly.
So
I love that.
And sometimes when they now come with some big things, it's big in my head. My head will just, but I just.
You just have to.
In their presence, and then children talk to one another. You must ensure that your voice is the loudest to them, so that when you're not there, they will still be hearing your voice. And then they also want to explore their children. So if you've not spoken to them about something, and somebody else is now the one talking to them about it, it gets a bit confusing.
Right.
But if you've had conversations with them and then somebody says something different, it's easier to come back and say, what you said, nobody said, I said, then you now correct that
from there.
So
okay.
We should be the ones that is their first tutor, no matter how difficult. And the topics that you think are very difficult, you can't talk about. You look for someone that will do it okay. Like these sessions that we are having, you know, there was a session my son was in. We had a conversation. I brought up all the topics. I knew the one I felt we needed, but we both agreed. You know, it was in one session they said how to be, what to do when I'm happy on the outside or sad on the inside. Immediately I saw the topic, I knew that my son will. But when they had that conversation, I said, Mommy, yes, a lot of times I'm happy when my friends are around, but I'm sad, you know.
On the inside.
So I don't know how to help him with that, but you know, when
other people can.
So you also seize the opportunity of, you know, speakers that are trusted, that have a pedigree to help you think you understand.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, did you have to add? Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, of course.
To just buttress what she was saying, with the generation we're in today, I think what works for me, I try to demystify daddy, you know, because we cannot bring the way we were all brought up, our own generation, 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever, you know, to try and raise them up here. Oh, have you greeted daddy this morning? You know, hey guys, how you doing? Slept well? You know, you've broken that, made them feel a sense of. So whenever we're doing school runs, you know, they always enjoy that. They're the one taking us to school today. You know, because it's at those school run times.
It's such a good time.
They have, you know, they have conversations. And they're always like, this happens, this happens.
Maybe daddy has money to spend. When money picks up, there's no shame about that. Daddy picks up.
So, what she was saying that how do you get the kids? What I've seen works, you know, is that you demystify the whole thing, this whole father-child, parent-child thing, right? Once they see you as someone they can communicate with, but like somebody else said here that your voice should still be the loudest, you understand? But that respect to be there. So they see that they can communicate with you. It doesn't have to be, oh, this time is when, this is a conversation with daddy time or mommy time. At that point in time, there might be something else that they need to express. But if you become so strict that it is only when this happens, they would find the next ear to speak to. So, you know, what I always encourage people, yes, you are their dad, yes, you are their mom. Nobody's ever going to change that. But don't go with them, you know, to them the way you went to your parents, where you're always going to be like, I can't understand, daddy, you know. To be honest, our children don't even speak our native languages anymore. So, you know, there's this saying that people say that if one teacher cannot teach all subjects, why do you expect one child to learn all the subjects? Do you understand? I mean, the teacher doesn't teach all the subjects, so why do you want the child to not learn all the subjects?
It's true. It's true. Amazing.